Good evening, everyone. My name is Melody McAllister, and tonight I'm hosting a special edition book chat. I host my book chat most Wednesday nights, and you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can catch the replay on these same channels. I want to give a special shout out to the Alice Keeler Teacher Tech community and the EduMatch Facebook community as well. With me tonight is a panel of authors who have walked the road to publication. I am honored to share space with Julie Bogart, Hedrick Nichols, Dr. Kevin Leichtman, Dene Gainey, and Lindy Hockenbary. They are all movers and shakers and making impacts for those who care deeply about education and humans. While they have similarities, their books are about different ideas, and each of them have their own story to being published. Are you someone who has a story you'd like to share with the world? We'd love your questions and hope that something tonight resonates and encourages you to move forward so that you can see your dream to fruition. So let's get started. I'm so honored to be with everyone tonight. Can you tell us about your background and books? And I'll share social so those who want to support you and follow up with you can. Julie, let's start with you.
Hi, it's an honor to be here. Thank you, Melody, for hosting. What a great group of authors. I have a long road to publication. I started working as a freelance writer, ghostwriter, magazine editor, book editor back in the 1990s. And in January of 2000, I launched a company called Brave Writer to teach writing to homeschooling families. Felt like what I had learned through years of publishing was necessary in the homeschool space to learn writing as self-expression. So I began by writing a big volume, big hunking 3-ring binder called The Writer's Jungle. And my brother, who was an internet marketer in the early days, said, don't publish it with a publisher. You can charge a lot more if you self-publish. And that was interesting to me. But then I thought, what about an audience? And I had to build one really from the ground up. I participated in homeschool discussion boards. I had a blog. And over 20 years' time, I developed a following. And only in the last 3 years have I actually had books published with Penguin Random House. The first one was The Brave Learner, which was really built from that 20-year journey of being a homeschool expert. And then the one that just came out in February is called Raising Critical Thinkers, and it's a parent's guide to growing wise kids in the digital age. And those are the fruits of decades in the education space and working with parents.
I love that, Julie, and congratulations. I know you're still #1 and like new releases, and it's amazing. And your next book is coming. If this is your latest book, but you also have like 3 other books. I know you have them close to you that you self-published as well.
Yes, they fell on the floor. So interestingly, I use social media a lot to grow my audience. And there was a time when Facebook was more friendly than it is now to people like me. So what I used to do, I broke all the rules and I wrote long form posts that were about 800 words each. And they got thousands of shares. And I really grew my Facebook audience through that. People always ask me, why would people read 800 words? Well, it's because I was speaking to their felt needs and I had insights that mattered to them. That's the skill of being a writer, right? So eventually I turned them into Amazon books. These are the kind that are like print on demand, run by Amazon. It's Kindle now, used to be called Create Space. And I've got 3 of them: A Gracious Space Fall, and then Winter. The camera, I'm not good at this.
No.
And then the Spring one. And these books have sold really well, partly because the audience was already familiar with the work. But it was all that work for those 20 years that created the credibility that made it possible for me to pitch and get an agent and actually end up with a good publishing house, or a publishing house that I felt really comfortable with. So a long, long journey, but also really gratifying one.
Well, thank you for sharing. We're going to get more into that in just a little bit, but I love that. And I also enjoy your long posts. So, and you're right, it truly does resonate with a lot of us. Our next person on the panel, Hedrick Nichols, you were just with me a couple of weeks ago, and then I got to meet you face to face in Dallas. And I'm just so glad to share space with you once again. Tell us about your background to publishing.
Wow, it was an actually interesting road. I could also say it started in the 3rd grade when I won my first Writers Award, but which kind of sort of it did. But when I came to Twitter, a man whose name is Dave Hennel, who I will be eternally grateful for, just kind of drew in a kind of a core group of people who had been joking or commenting on each other's posts. And through what's known in the educational world as educational chats, it's kind of like a mini PD. I'm assuming that people got to know my words, got to know my work. I've been blogging now for about 20 years, which is like a gazillion years in blog age. And people got to see what I was writing. And I had first, I think, Cherry Lake Publishing, Sleeping Bear Press. They approached me first about a project designed by Calissa Wing. She designed a series called Racial Justice in America. And the first two of those were What is Anti-Racism, What is Black Lives Matter Movement? And they were the first two that I put out last February. There they are. And then shortly thereafter, Solution Tree called me. I was actually hanging out with my son, waiting on my son to finish his bass lesson. And they called me and said, hey, we really want you to do a book. And I had started something in 2018 or 19, kind of OBF stories and strategies. I say OBF. Anybody want to guess what that is? You get to guess.
I know what it is. Your only Black friend.
Yeah, you know, that one Black friend, because I was born in a time when, you know, Jim Crow was kind of just trying to die out, and I was in a school where I was that one Black friend. And so I wanted to collect that into some stories and strategies for teachers. And they approached me when I was doing that, and that's exactly what happened. Finding your blind spots. And then shortly after that, Sleeping Bear Press wanted to release a couple of other ones. And so they put out the Black Excellence series, which is also a part of the Racial Justice in America system. So between blogging and what I do on Twitter and social media, that's kind of how the publishers found me. I would have found some publishers eventually. But it came really through that community, that educational community in Twitter. So if you're listening and you do not you're not actively on Twitter, find EduTwitter. It's a warm and fuzzy space. We share resources and friendship, and real friendship.
Is it really warm and fuzzy?
I just hugged you. I thought that was warm and fuzzy.
Right. Okay. It has its moments. Thank you for sharing. I love it. All right. Next up on our panel is the incredible Dene Gainey, who actually was on my very first book chat 2 years ago. So I'm so glad you joined us again tonight, Dene, and who is also a fellow EduMatch publishing author with me. So Dene, tell us about your journey.
Well, hello, everybody. Again, my name is Dene from the state of Florida. I'd like to say that I always thought that I was a writer. I started writing really, really early, to be honest with you, probably around the age of 9. But they all went in folders, and those folders piled up, and I've moved, I don't know how many times since then. And so things have got displaced, and they never got published. And so even though I thought I might have had something that sounded good to me, it looked good to me, I never actually took that step to publish anything. And so 2014 comes along. Obviously, I've been teaching for a little while, and I started blogging, and that's been a common theme tonight. Just sort of getting your ideas out there and sharing something that, you know, out of your life, right? Your life is a story. Your life is a story. And so out of your own experiences come these opportunities to be able to share. And so I love that she's holding that up, because I don't have it with me right now, but that was the first book I published with EduMatch Publishing. And to sort of backtrack a couple of years, I actually published an EduMatch's Snapshot in Education in 2016, the very first one, I believe it was. And then again in 2017, prior to Journey to the YNU coming out. Excuse me. And since then, I've had opportunities to publish additional things, which again come out of experiences that I've had in my life, or things that have even occurred in the classroom. And so some of them are plays and not just actual, context or chapter related books for reading. But Dr. Sarah Thomas, I'm going to shout her out, because Journey to the YNU became Journey to the YNU because of a conversation. Sometimes you just never think that your story has the power to bring inspiration or wisdom to people. And so a conversation could change that narrative very, very quickly. And that's exactly what happened. And so 8 months later, Journey to the YNU was born. Thank you for letting me be here.
Oh yeah, no, it's my honor that you're here, my friend. I love that. I'm still waiting to go to Denny's with you, but Can we find all? So you are published and published through a publishing company, EduMatch, and self-published. Can we find all of your work at denegainey.com?
Absolutely. It is all there, including the newer material as well. And then it's available all on Amazon.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for sharing, Dean. Our next panelist is Dr. Kevin Leichtman. Tell us about your background in your books, Kevin.
Hey, so it's been a really fun journey. Really started when I got into college. I kind of bounced around, wasn't the best student. And I finally found a program that would let me graduate with an English/creative writing degree. So I got to take mainly creative writing courses my last 2 years. And I was so convinced I was going to be a fiction book writer and I was going to be so awesome in that space. And I probably hold the record at that school for amount of submissions that had complete rejections. So I didn't do so well there. I did well enough in my classes, but I didn't, get over that hump. But one thing I learned that was really important was just to keep shooting my shot and throwing myself out there. I started getting really good feedback. I started getting some edits and some advice. Some, hey, I don't think you're ready yet, but keep trying along these lines, kind of thing. So I ended up putting that dream off for a while and getting into education. I got my master's, and then that's when I met my wife. Her and I were in the same PhD program. We were both teaching. And as we were getting towards the end of our PhDs, we started to realize we're doing all this research. We have all these things compiled, and we're really doing nothing with it. And at the same time, we're busting our tail to actually pay publishers to consider our work rather than, having any opportunity to monetize it. So we started going the business route, and we ended up partnering with a sports psychology company, and we pitched an academic branch to their company, and they liked it and they accepted it and put us on as directors. And we started building all this curriculum and professional development. We set up this whole beautiful program, and everything was like premium and, kind of expensive. Like, we poured our hearts into those programs. They were like, you should probably have some kind of better entry point. And they suggested that we write an ebook. And at that time, I'd kind of forgotten about writing books. I'm like, I've got so many other projects going. And they're like, just a short ebook, like 4 or 5 chapters, doesn't have to be more than 50 pages, just something that really shows what the program is and how to use it. And, with real practical advice, doesn't have to be fluffy, just get it out there. And when we did that, it actually had a great reception, much better than we expected. So we took that momentum and we said, gee, we should make that like an actual book. So we took our time. We took like 6 months from the start of that ebook to turning it into, an actual book length book. That was our first one, Teacher's Guide to the Mental Edge. And we did it all by ourselves. The chapters that she wrote, I edited. The chapters I wrote, she edited. And we just did it as a little, husband-wife partnership. And we ended up loving that process. We really enjoyed it. We got into it. And, when we finished the book, I actually finished my dissertation in the exact same month. So a lot of writing. I was kind of beat. I'm like, okay, I'm never going to write again, but this was a lot of fun. And things just kind of happened by fruition after that. I also have to shout out Dr. Sarah Thomas, who's amazing. I pitched her an idea about my dissertation research. I'm like, hey, I want to turn this into a book. I said, hey, I also got this other random idea. What do you think about this? She's like, oh, you got to do that first. That's so good. And I ended up talking to 10 of my former high school students who were interested in expressing their high school experience and getting more people to hear about it. So that's when I wrote my second book with them, called The Perfect 10. We did it together. We share the profits of the book together. They're in it every step of the way with me. They've been wonderful with it. And I think I'm learning that I've really enjoyed all the partnerships that come with writing. First, I got to partner with my wife for my first book. Then I got to partner with 10 former students and EduMatch for my next book. And the communities and the relationships that are formed are just amazing and spectacular. So I've really enjoyed the process.
That's incredible. And I love that you're sharing that. And I want to give another shout out to Dr. Sarah Thomas. She always says this, but that, you may think that your story is like somebody else's, but really it's not. Everybody has a unique story and it's worth sharing. And she's such an encouragement and a force when you are wanting to share your story, because it's scary. And we might talk about that too. The next person on our panel that I just got to meet, I said, "You look so familiar. Have I met you before?" She said, "No, I live in Montana." And I'm like, "All right, well, you still look familiar to me. I'm not going back on that." And we had spent some time in Florida together. And now she's here on my book chat, and she has an incredible book. Lindy, tell us about your journey and your background.
I feel like my journey was a lot different than everybody else's. So my background is in education. I spent my career in education in various different forms. I started as a middle school, high school teacher, ended up as a technology integration specialist. And so that's what I do now. My wheelhouse is helping teachers. So I'm like that go-to person. If you have that question about technology, big or small, I'm that person you go to. And so I have, for the past, getting on 8 years now, have went around, led professional development trainings with teachers, webinars, all of that good stuff. And that's how I was sharing a lot of my knowledge. I wasn't doing a ton of writing, occasionally a blog post here or there, type of thing. I was mostly sharing my knowledge via trainings to teachers. And then COVID hit. And I saw what was going on with virtual learning. And I should mention that I've taught online. I did my whole master's degree online. So I had quite a bit of experience with online learning. And I was like, wow, I can help here. This is where I can help. And at the time, one of the companies I worked with was wanting to create, they called them interactive notebooks. And so I was like, well, I'm going to create one on online learning. And I just started to write. And pretty soon I had like 80 pages. And then I was like, I have a lot more to say about this. So I put a lid on it. I had to be done at that point. I put it out into the world. And with the goal of, I'm going to come back to this. And that was in April of 2020. And so finally, I had a lot going on that summer. We bought a house and remodeling the house. I still don't have closet drawers, just FYI. Everybody can see right here. That's the state of my house remodel. There was just lots of things going on. So I didn't get it picked back up until October. And so I did. So I wrote it and ended up with, apparently everybody tells me it's a monster. I did not know that when I was writing it. I just kept writing and ended up with like 300 and some pages worth about online learning. So yeah, I will say that I never, unlike other people here, I never aspired to be a writer or an author. But I have to say that I now really enjoy writing and I really enjoy sharing my knowledge with teachers that way. So yeah, so if you're out there and you're like, you know what? I'm not a good writer, or I don't like writing, or like, there's still space for you. Like, it can happen. You can still be there like me.
You know what, Lindy? And I haven't read it from cover to cover yet, but this reminds me of like the What to Expect When You're Expecting book, but what to expect when you're like teaching online. Like, it covers so much.
And you know, I wrote it that way. I wrote it. It's called A Teacher's Guide to Online Learning because I wanted it to be, this is everything that you need to set yourself up for success in virtual learning. So yeah, it really is like that, what to expect when you're expecting. Like, this is everything that you need in this one space. And yes, it's a monster.
Wonderful. I love it. And we'll, for those who I haven't had an individual book chat, we will dig deeper into your stories as well. So one of the common themes that we've talked about, and Lindy, though you maybe didn't blog, but I do want to cover this. Before you became a published author, how did you share your writing? And anybody can answer.
Well, I'll jump in. I was writing even before the internet. Probably none of you were alive. Who knows? But way back in the dark ages. So one of the things that I was really into, I lived abroad when I was a young adult. So I wrote letters and I wrote a million of them. Like every day it was survival. There was no telephone, no internet, no way to connect. So there was a lot of writing for other people. I wrote a newsletter for our organization. And then I just started looking for opportunities. I wrote the newsletter at our church. I got into editing for other people. I remember my husband worked at a university, and he got the opportunity to edit PhD dissertations before they did their presentations, but he didn't have time. And I said to him, oh, give them to me. I can do it. And he's like, what qualifies you? I had a BA in history from UCLA. I had no business editing PhD dissertations. I said, I just know that I'll be good at it. And I was. So I like had some hubris because I'd spent so much time writing, but I also like took every opportunity, whether it paid or it didn't pay. And by the time the internet came along, that was just like a party for me. I just was on every email list. I was at every discussion chat board. I ran a blog. I just looked for opportunities. And interestingly, I'll just say this, the more that I wrote in those spaces and it resonated with people, the more confidence I had that I had something worth writing. So it's sort of like this circular loop where you might doubt yourself. Well, one of the ways to find out if you have anything worth publishing is to write in spaces where people can give you feedback. Instagram captions, blogging, discussion boards. Find out if you are resonating with people, and it will really fuel your writing.
I love that.
I'm going to jump in there because I don't want you to be by yourself, Julie. I started writing the same thing, like you said, church newsletters. And as a matter of fact, I was on my journalism team in school. And then in church, I actually not only wrote, but I helped produce it, which at that time meant an actual crank press.
A ditto machine.
Yes. So I know what you mean. Me and writing, we go a long way back.
That's awesome.
Would you guys agree that writing, well, Lindy, I don't know, because your story kind of is different from everyone's. Was writing a big part of your life, all of you?
Not mine.
Yeah.
Like I said, it wasn't a part of mine until recently, the last couple years.
So I would have to say it's always been in some form. So you've heard the newsletter thing. I didn't get a chance to be a part of the newsletter. That's awesome though. I wrote songs, and so I expressed my writing through song. And it's very interesting because all you're really doing is telling the story anyway. So
yes. I love that. I remember writing lyrics to existing songs. So I would just take like an existing song and Tom Petty, and then just rewrite it with my own, like I'd let the music exist. I think a lot of play and exploration in writing was part of my life. Lindy, I find you so inspiring. I think a lot of people are worried that if they haven't been writing their whole lives, that they're somehow disqualified if they have this burning passion to express some expertise or some personal story. So I think it's really cool that you could share that.
Yeah. And I just tell, like, just sit down and just start going at it. And don't worry if it sounds good, or just get it out there. Just get it on the screen, and then you can come back and write it. I also love the idea of having a blog and like writing in those spaces where you can, like you said, you could get that feedback. I didn't do that. And now I'm starting to do that,
I love that. Do you guys have favorite blog sites that you go to or that you use?
You mean to read or to like WordPress or blog?
Your own blogs, your personal blogs. Like when you started your blog, where did you start it? Like I do WordPress. I love WordPress. I'm a WordPress believer. Do you guys have blog sites that you would recommend to anybody who is wanting to start a blog?
You know what? Honestly, hey, Sarah, you missed all your shout outs. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, she is.
You know what? Honestly, I blogged with my kids and designed stuff with my kids. I am a blogger girl, was early, and then I'm a WordPress person now. But I really like Wix because the learning curve is about this big. So I mean, WordPress is wonderful, but it's got a lot of bells and whistles. If you're not tech savvy, if you open up Wix and play around and Google, you'll be able to do Wix, and you can set up a blog really easily for yourself. The domain name you can actually go and buy, but even the regular Wix name, you can customize the back end enough so that you can feel comfortable. And I would recommend that. I used it with my middle schoolers, and it was literally, okay, we got 10 minutes, go play around. All right, who wants me to show you some of the finer functions? We're good, Miss Nichols.
Yeah, I use Wix as well, and it's really easy, drag and drop interface, but yet it gives you the ability to customize if you want to, which is nice.
And the templates are not, it used to be template websites were just really, really awful, and they're not anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? The people who are the UX folks have gotten really super savvy, and you can really get a professional looking, it's not like, oh, just use it as for the middle school kids. That's not what I mean at all. I mean, the learning curve is not big, but you can really get beautiful sites on Wix.
That's cool.
Agreed. And I even think with WordPress, like you can start with a free site until you feel like it might be something that you want to invest in. And I definitely think it's worth the investment once you start writing regularly. Okay, I'm going to jump to the next question unless anybody else has something they want to share about their pre-publishing writing.
I was just going to make you guys laugh. My first blog was on Angel Fire. You guys remember that site?
Oh, yes.
Oh
It
my
wasn't
gosh.
a blog site. I just kind of set it up that way. Like, I'm just going to make it work. I didn't even know
That's
what I was doing.
impressive.
So, but I use WordPress now too, and I'm a big fan of that. I have a lot of friends who use Wix as well. I think they're both great. I use WordPress for like 500 things. So I find that's a really good place if you're doing a lot of different things with your website plus a blog, but Wix is super easy. So I like them both.
Did anybody ever do MySpace? I'm just curious.
Yes. I still have my MySpace account. Are you kidding me? I found it and I'm good. Like I'm active on it again. I love
We actually used GeoCities in the really old days. I mean, that's going way back.
Yes, GeoCity. Like yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. Well, and talking about social media, how important, and I want to hear all your answers. Be honest. I know some of us are stronger than others, but how important has social media been to publication? While I trip over my words.
Okay, now I'll start. I mean, for me, it was absolutely the thing. I blogged for years because I came out of the music industry, so I would always blog, and I had an audience, a natural audience as a musician. But when I went to full-time education, it was a completely different thing. And Twitter has literally provided me with resources, lesson plans, publishing contracts. So I'm a fan.
Wow.
And I was at your launch, Hedrick, and do you feel like it was the social media that really your last launch with finding your blind spots? Do you feel like that community that you had developed for years, like really had your back when you were doing that?
Absolutely. Even now, I mean, the launch was in December because of shipping delays. It actually physically people started getting them in January, and everybody, posted and hey, here I am with your book. Hey, look, I got it. And that's like free press when you think about it. And they were just doing it to say, hey, Hedrick, look, I got it. But for me, when I thought, hey, oh, good, I can retweet it. That's like, 15 extra people that I can say, hey, I got your book. So those kinds of things are and then people support you. When I do a conference or stuff, hey, oh, I saw that you're doing this. I'm going to come, or I'm not going to come. I got something that day, but you're going to be great. Little things like that just mean a lot.
Yeah, I will echo Hedrick on that one. Twitter has been absolutely amazing. 2015 onward, I've been on Twitter, and it has changed everything. I will also say just the sheer variety of social media that's available now. I think you reach different audiences in different places. Not everybody has a Facebook account. A lot of people have Twitter, some have Instagram. And so that's even a great space to be able to even put your stuff in short clips or make those colorful posts and share those out too. And that has certainly been an opportunity to get the word out to even more people.
Yeah, I'm at the beginning of my journey, and I don't think I mentioned in my intro, but I did self-publish. So I released it summer of 2021. So I'm still figuring all of this out. But so far, social media has been a huge part of getting the book out there and making sure people know that it exists, right? And gaining readers, basically. And it's a lot of work. I'm not going to lie, and I think you have to realize that the algorithms of every platform are different, but the one thing they consistently have in common is consistency, and that you have to post consistently in order to really bring that audience in and share it. Now, that's easy if you are sharing your writing in other places, like we've been talking about with your blogs, right? You can easily tweet out your blogs or post your blogs on Facebook or feature them in a TikTok video or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said TikTok, because, you know, most people think of TikTok as like the middle school dancer thingy. But if you don't know educational TikTok space, you can learn so much in 45 seconds.
Yes.
And you can dance.
I love it. Don't get me started on TikTok. I'm a huge TikTok fan. I love it. I love it. I love it. I started making TikTok videos in the fall, and I was doing really good and I was being really consistent, and life got crazy and book got crazy and work got crazy and everything got crazy. And I got out of it. And now my goal is in the next few weeks to get back into making my TikTok videos. But yeah, what do they call it? Teach Talk is a huge thing. Book Talk is a huge thing, by the way, as well, if you're interested in education and books.
And most of the major publishing companies are on Book Talk.
Yes, they are.
That's true.
You know,
one thing I wanted to say too is,
go.
sorry.
No.
When you think about social media too, I think one thing that's so underrated about it is it's so important to every step of the publishing process. Not just my book is out, hey, everybody read it and buy it. One thing that I've always done is on a place like Twitter, I'll test out lines of my upcoming books. I'll say, does this resonate with you? What kind of response does it get? Is it sparking controversy? Am I getting feedback? And it's actually changed a lot of how my content ends up in its final production. So just throughout that whole process, yeah, it builds up hype for the book, but it's really important for me to get real live feedback from an audience before it's written on a page and now you can't go back. So, I kind of shift topics based on what my next book is going to be. And I start putting it out there on social media little by little. And people don't know those are actual lines from my upcoming book, or that line might change based on how they give feedback, or maybe I'm not hitting in the right context. So it's been huge in every step of the way.
Kevin, I just want to say, Kevin, that's awesome. By the way, thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
I just want to mention too, if we all went back and looked at our tweets and captured them somehow, that could almost be a book in and of itself. Probably off topic, but I just had to say that when Kevin was talking, I thought about it.
I actually used Twitter when I taught at Xavier University here in Cincinnati with my students. And so one of the practices that I asked them to do was when they were doing their reading to, we had a class hashtag, and if they had insights they wanted the class to know. Now this was, maybe 8 or 10 years ago now. Twitter and all of that has changed a lot, and people got to the point where they don't want to tweet about what they're reading. They're like busy, flirting. But what I was going to say is that social media has been the biggest tool of instruction for me too. Kevin, I agree with you. And for me, it isn't even that I knew I was writing a book. It was that by participating in social media, the book wrote itself. By the time I was ready to pitch a book, I had so thoroughly developed the vocabulary, the insights, the rapport with the audience that they were ready for it, and I was ready to write it. So a lot of times I think you can use social media. In the early days, it was blogging and discussion boards and email lists. Now it's, whether it's TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, you're using these as places to rough out your ideas. It's like free writing in public, but you get the conversational dynamic, and that allows you to see what resonates. I would say for book launching, for book pitching and launching, social media is what publishers are looking for. They want to see that you know how to draw your own audience. Publishers do not promote you from obscurity. They partner with you in the audience you've already cultivated. They're willing to extend the reach, but they won't do the work for you. And I think that's something really important for writers to know, that publishing is not a holy grail. My mother has written 75 books, and I watched her go in and out of remainders for her whole career. And I knew I didn't want to write a book that went into remainders in 2 years. So I spent decades building an audience that might think what I'm writing was interesting before I even pitched, because I wanted something that lasted. I didn't want it to just be the vanity project.
I love that. And that really resonated with Dr. Sarah as well, as she is a publisher. So she is listening and agreeing. And I love that. And Dean said that social media is like the appetizers. I definitely, I love it. And it's more than just social media. For me, it's like the community, because really social media is only as deep as your community is. So if it's
True.
just a tweet or just a post, you know, that could be pretty superficial. But when you have that community, and like a lot of you, Kevin, we have never met in person, but like, I feel like, and Julie, you probably don't remember, but I have met you in person.
I do
but,
remember.
Okay, cool.
I feel like you're my BFF from afar.
I know, right? And the cool thing is that that's what happens when you have that community, whether you're virtually collaborating or in person. It's so natural. So I love that. And we kind of alluded to this. And I want to go on to the next question and get a little bit deeper into this. But how has feedback, because honestly, when I was younger, feedback was scary. And right before my book published, I remember, and I was talking to Dr. Sarah, who's listening and watching. Thank you so much, Sarah. But I wanted to barf. Like, I was ready to vomit before. I mean, like, did you all feel that? Oh, thank you, Dean. You're so sweet. Thank you, Dean. How did you guys, how has feedback improved your skill? Thanks, Dean. I appreciate you.
I might be weird, but I adore feedback. I live for it. It doesn't mean that it isn't painful at times, but I am so eager. Maybe because I'm also a writing instructor, I know it makes it better. Like, I just know it. I've experienced it too many times. So I'm not, like I said, for me, writing has never been a vanity project. It actually is about the communication power of the ideas. Ideas are endlessly mesmerizing to me. And so occasionally, yes, my feeling will get hurt if I thought I crafted just the most beautiful sentence and someone's like, I have no idea what you're saying. That is so vague and ethereal. You know, I might have a moment of ego in those moments, but on the whole, like, I love submitting the draft and having the editor write back with margin notes. Like, that is a high for me. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. It is possible to like feedback.
I am the same way. I am that typical teacher who loves to learn. And I think that's why I love teaching. And so I love to get feedback. And I have a call out in my book, I think right in the first chapter, that says, send me feedback with my email. Like, in it, like, I want your feedback, please. And so, and everybody I actually just talked to somebody today that had bought my book and was working through it. And I'm like, send me feedback. I want to know, is it helpful? What else do you want to know? You know, where did you get stuck? What else can I give you? How can I support you?
I'll add to that too. I think feedback to me broadens your reach as a writer, because as much as I might have a belief in my work, I think the value of it is increased when someone else gives their point of view, because now it's going to reach twice as many people, perhaps, or 5 times as many people, because I have another set of eyes. And so the more eyes that I can have looking at that, the more that book is going to be able to reach more people.
I think feedback too is a source of optimism. When you're receiving feedback, that means you're in the game, right? And you're now looking at your work as, what's the best case scenario, or what's going to make this thing become great. And if you're not getting feedback, you're saying, this is my work, good luck. But you know, when you're receiving feedback, it can be scary, but it's like the ultimate optimism of, I want this thing to be great, and now I'm getting extra eyes on it. What would this look like to you if this is the perfect book for you?
Right.
Okay. Has anybody had a 1-star review?
I think it was either 1 or 2. And I will, you know, this was, not only that, I got banned. So
true. Hedrick has been on the banned book list. Bravo.
Congratulations.
Hedrick.
That's an award.
You know, and we're talking about with, like, you know, Toni Morrison, Ibram Kendi. I'm on there with some, you know, some big guys. You want to chill with the big boys, kind of a thing. So, you know, right? So feedback right now is kind of a tender spot. I've got right, Lindy? I've got wonderful people who are honest with me. I did a chapter in Finding Your Blind Spots about supporting your LG students. And I have 2 friends to actually really look at it from inside the community, because an ally is still not the same as being inside the community, but I'm still a marginalized population. So I felt confident in, you know, being able to handle some of the questions that you'd be able to handle. And my girlfriend wrote, "You don't have to tell me how to be gay better." That's not what I'm doing. It's like, you know, as a Black person, as a woman, you get the same kind of. So anyway, but we kind of got to hash it out, and I made some changes based on her recommendations, because I definitely did not want to make it. That's not what I was going for. So that kind of feedback has been really good, and I've got a great community who, you know, who are honest with me. But because I write in spaces where, you know, equity is the main theme, right now there's some ugly moments. And my Twitter community, warm and fuzzy, because some guy wrote on my on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, "There's a hot place in hell for people like you." Ooh. And this scathing feedback that really had nothing to do with any, you know. And if you've read my stuff, it's pretty inclusive. It's my, you know, I'm really trying to draw people in. So, you know, I'm not even the edgy one that says, you know, you gotta, that's not even my way. And so that has been difficult. I gave a book talk last night, and, you know, this guy, "That's not true. Black people don't get put in jail more often," you know, and having to answer those things online or in public, in person. That is, you know, because I'm a people pleaser. I don't get mad at me, and that's all. So it's kind of a hard space. So I'm feeling some kind of way about feedback right now.
But that feels so different to me than feedback, though, right? Like, to me, feedback on the writing is from trusted people who are helping you improve. But what you're talking about, holy cow, I've spent thousands on therapy over that stuff. Like comment sections, we don't even let our comments be posted on our YouTube channel for my company. There is so much energy spent moderating comments from people who don't actually hold your art with grace. Like, I can handle feedback from people who hold what I put out with some kind of graciousness. But if they're there to be flippant and glib, that can really penetrate. It's really harmful. For me, I'm with you on that. Solidarity completely.
But I think we have to remember, when you put yourself out in the world, whether it's via a blog, a book, social media, speaking in front of other people, you're opening yourself up for that. Yeah. And so I keep telling my husband, again, I'm at the beginning of this with my book, but I keep telling him, I'm like, I know I'm going to get a negative review on Amazon. It's just going to happen. You can never make everybody happy. And you have to remember that as an author, as a person that wants to share your brain or whatever it is that you're sharing with the world. I think that's important to remember, is you will never make everybody happy. And there's always going to be someone that doesn't agree with you. And now some spaces more than that, like Hedrick, I bow down to you. That is such a hard space to be in, a lot harder space to be in than, well, that's not true. There's stuff going on with virtual learning. Lots of negative commentary about virtual learning out there that I'm trying to, but you know, I'm taking that and I'm making it my power, and I'm trying to flip the conversation. Yeah. And like, so I've been talking to teachers that are teaching online, being like, I want to feature you, you know, and I want to tell the stories of where it's going right, so we can flip this commentary that's become the negative of like, oh, well, it didn't go well during COVID, so virtual learning isn't for no one. Right?
No, emergency pandemic learning doesn't work. That is not virtual learning. Okay, done. Sorry. Not
that's in the first chapter of my book as well.
Boom. What to expect when you're teaching online. Dr. Kevin, do you want to say anything about feedback, or did you already? And I'm sorry. Oh, you
already voted in already, but
yeah, you did the game. Okay,
you know,
I remember.
We have the word troll, so yes. You know, that's kind of what I think when people get on Hedrick's comments. I see that every now and then. I'm just like, you know, just let it die, because they need your energy for fuel so that conversation can keep running in the direction they want it to run. It's not a productive direction. I just let it go. Bye-bye. I'm a boring target.
Sometimes easier said than done, for sure. And Hedrick, I just want to say that I'm sorry that you had to go through that. It's not right. And so I can't change it for you. I wish I could, but I'm definitely, I hate it when my friends feel attacked, and it's not right. And I want to say, like, somebody said you're not really an author until you've had your first 1-star review. Do you guys feel like that's true, false?
I learned early not to read Amazon reviews because the most liked review for the Brave Learner, and the Brave Learner has like 1,400 reviews and it's a 5-star rating, but the top rated review is a 3-star. And the person is upset that it wasn't a Christian book. And it never asked to be, but because it's in the homeschooling space, there was this review saying that they felt like I left Jesus out of the book. And boy, did that bug me. It bugged me because it felt like it was unfair to the goal of the book and the explicit stated goal of the book in the book. But then what's really interesting is by being the top rated review, it's done the job for the book. Everybody who comes sees immediately, not a Christian book. So if that's important to you, you will not buy the book. So in a weird backhanded way, I was like, thank you for the favor. But, those things get to you when you're accused of things that weren't in your heart, weren't in your agenda. That's where I think the negative feedback is really hard.
Yeah. That's crazy. I have so much to say about that, Julie, but we're getting close on time, but I loved, you did actually talk about your spiritual journey. That is so weird. So let's go on. I want to talk, let's get real. Like, there's roadblocks, like being published is not easy. If it were super easy, everybody would be doing it, but it's not. So what kept you guys going when the roadblocks came up?
I guess I'd be happy to just jump in and start. Some of the biggest roadblocks, I think, are always writing the full book. I think there are a lot of people out there. I bet anybody watching this has written at least a portion of a book at some point in their lives. It could have been a page, it could have been a whole chapter. Maybe they got to 2 chapters. But starting all the way through finish is so difficult because it's taxing for a long period of time. It's not like one day and lots of effort and a ton of coffee and you'll be okay. Maybe for a blog post. But when you're writing something that's book length, I mean, it takes a serious dedicated commitment for a while. And then you have to go back and reread it and edit it and comb over it with that fine tooth comb. It's a lot to stay with the project. So, I could be cheesy and say, you got to remember your why. And that is important. But I think, at least for me, and you all jump in too and tell me what you think, but I think it was really important to have people that I was accountable to. When I finally said, you know what, okay, I'm going to make this thing a book, and I had my wife with me every step of the way, actually knowing where I am in process of the book and staying on me, like, did you write those pages today? Did you at least sit down and think about it? Did you outline? She did it in a nice way, but she did it. Having friends keeping me accountable, having business partners, even my parents stopping in. Hey, I know you're writing that book. How far are you? And keeping track of that. So you got to realize it's a commitment to a project and not just that one time where you feel motivation and you're going to knock it out. It can't happen that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can add to that as a person that self-published. I don't know how it is at the publishing world, but when you're self-publishing, it can be hard to find that person to be that accountability partner. That was kind of the case for me. Luckily, I am a very motivated person. And when I get my mind on something, I am like, I'm going to get there no matter what. There's goods and bads to that. Believe me, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. So that was good for me. But my big roadblock was really not having any idea what I was doing when it came to publishing a book. Obviously, I'd never done it before, had never looked into it, didn't know what I was doing. And then not realizing, and I don't know why I didn't realize this, I made a very purposeful decision to self-publish for lots of different reasons. I didn't even look into traditional publishing through a publishing company. But when I made that decision, I didn't realize and didn't think through the fact that it's literally all on me.
Right.
Really thing. And I grossly misundertook the amount of times, I think you were saying, Kevin, of the combing through and even things like when I would get my edits back from my copy editor. Guess who has to implement those edits and go through every single one for a 300-page book? Me. right? And so that time, it took way longer than way longer than I anticipated. And mostly just because, again, I didn't know what I was doing. I was brand new to the process. I didn't have anybody helping me and saying, okay, take, imagine this much time for copy edit, this much time to create the index, all of those types of things.
I want to piggyback on that, but more from an emotional side. I think a lot of people feel unworthy of being published, and they think that their ideas are duplicates of what's already out there, or they doubt their own ability. And the truth is that if you have something that you want to write, there's always an audience, even if it's just your family. You might want to tell the story of your growing up for your grandchildren. I remember my mother, who is a published writer, wrote a book of stories of all her bear encounters from 45 years of backpacking for my kids. That never got published in the traditional publishing way, but she created a keepsake for us. So if you're intimidated by that sort of bigger publishing world, start by writing as a gift. Anne Lamott, in her book, Bird by Bird, talks about writing as a gift. And I think that's how I've always seen it. If I write a birthday card, if I write a letter, it's a gift, and it's a form of publishing. And so get your feet wet and develop your sense of worthiness that way before you take on the big project of trying to publish a book with Amazon. And that is a big learning curve. My gosh, my writer's jungle back in 2000, there was no self-publishing tools. We had to actually get a printer, get someone to lay it out, right? And it said ISBN number pending for 15 years because I didn't know how to get an ISBN number. Like, this is the self-publishing world. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. So the second piece of that, the worthiness, is the first one. The second one is do it wrong. Just do it wrong. You can have errors. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can leave the ISBN number off. You can just get your work out there, see if people will buy it, use those tools that are available to us, and don't worry about it. It's just paper. There are billions of books. Yours is just one more. Like, lower the scale of importance.
I'm glad you said that, Julie, because my New Year's resolution was I'm a major perfectionist, again, blessing and a curse, like get my mind on something. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it perfect, to the point that I started realizing that it was holding me back from actually doing things. So my New Year's resolution was to just do things and not worry about perfection, just put it out there. And we should say, in terms of the self-publishing route, even though I'm talking about how much work it was and how much time it was, and it was, but the actual part of getting a book printed on Kindle Direct Publishing is so incredibly simple. Like,
it is now.
So simple. Yes. Like, to the point that I've actually pondered, I wonder if this could be something that teachers could do for their kids, like where they could actually publish like their end of year journal, or I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, because it's cheap, it's easy. It really is so easy. So if you just want something to get out, like you were saying, Julie, as a gift into the world, and you don't need to pay, like I paid a designer to do my cover and make the graphics inside and all of that, and a copy editor and a proofreader and all of that. Don't just
right
and just put it out there.
That's right.
FYI, KDP is cheaper than Book Creator. No offense, I love Book Creator, but KDP is cheaper.
I was going to say Book Creator, but okay, you beat me to it. Dean, I know you've been dying to share. Please.
I can echo Julie. I can echo Lindy. I can echo everybody on this broadcast tonight. But I will tell you that's something that we're parlaying with, is taking some writing from our students and putting that together. So I'm so excited that you brought that up. I also wanted to echo Julie in the sense that what you said, I am under the belief that you may have a similar story as someone else to share. However, you're going to say it in a way that's different from the other person that wrote it. And so perhaps that means it's going to end up in the hands of somebody who needs it the way you said it, versus the way it's coming from this other person. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, because I believe that's very powerful, because we all have our way of reaching. And I just want to believe that what we're talking about is it has the propensity to reach those who really need to hear it the way that we are going to convey it. I'll echo also the consistency, being consistent and just believing that what you have to say has value, which has already been stated. And then following your own path or structure. Everybody's way is different. So kind of already said that, but.
Yeah. But it is different and it's unique and it's wonderful. Lindy's self-published. Hedrick's only been, published through a company, and then the three of you kind of have like that both ends of it. You know the world. It's so cool what you guys are sharing tonight, and I love it. And then of course, Lindy, like you didn't write before this, but all of us, we feel like we were writers before this. So it's great to have all of those backgrounds, especially because every single one of us here tonight believe that this is the gift that we want our children to possess. And we know that it's power, that pen is powerful. And we want our children to understand that. And my kids, I mean, it's crazy to get them to write, but they know that mommy writes. And, they're a part of that. That's part of their legacy. And as teachers, that's a part of the legacy that we share with our students. I was going to ask, what would you change about the process? But we're getting really close to the end, and I want to honor everybody's time. So my last question is just going to be like, what is the advice that helped you the most, or what would you want to share with somebody who is contemplating becoming a published author? And anybody can go first, or I can call your name, whichever you prefer. Okay, Julie, go.
I would say the number one thing is when you feel writer's block, do research. Go read someone else. Go outside, take a walk, have an experience. Do not write from dryness. So get juicy and then just let yourself go. And so to me, it's like a bicycle. There's the input that helps you have new thoughts, and then there's the output that you put on the page. So that would be my main advice. I think too often we write from one very undeveloped idea and we run out of words and then we feel stuck. You don't have to be stuck. Just go research, read, do a juicy activity.
Love it. Hedrick, what about you?
Just right. That would be seriously, I had the opposite thing. I would get so bogged down in research, and I would find a rabbit hole, and I would read, and I would be like, 250-page white paper. It's like, oh crap, I'm not, I only got 2 of the pages written out of the 20 that I wanted to write today. And so, actually, my accountability partners were, Bonnie Nieves, she's also an EduMatch published author, and Kelly Bahari. And Kelly's like, nope, just write. No, not research. Go back and do your just write. And that was my thing.
Love it.
Okay, you don't want me to sing, so I'm not going to do that. But just believe me on that account. I will say 2 things. One is actually I had talked to someone, actually Dr. Robert Dillon. He did one of the editorial reviews of my book, has several books out there. He's all about like learning space design. I was at METC conference, the Missouri Ed Tech conference several years ago. And I had kind of always been like, oh, maybe I want to write. So I was talking to him about it. They had like a meet the author thing. And he said, just do a chapter at a time. Just take it a chapter at a time. It's a lot less overwhelming if you do a chapter at a time. And that's exactly what I did when I wrote my book. And I will say, and I've told several people this over the last couple months, that the writing part was by far the easiest for me. I don't know about everybody else. I'd be curious to hear everybody else's, but just getting it out on paper was by far the easiest part of the process. And just realize that I don't know if that's going to be your case or not, of like that being the easiest part of the process. But you think like, oh, I got it all wrote down. I'm done now. But once the book goes out, like you're just starting. You have to get people to read it, and you have to build that audience, especially if you haven't done that before. So the work is like the work is just starting when you get the book out there, in a way, for a lot of cases.
It's so true. All right, fellas, what do you think?
So I'll just go ahead and play off the title of the book. Writing is a journey, and it is a process, which we've heard several times here tonight. And I think it's important to understand that even as you write, there are times you probably want to take your eyes off of that writing for a while and then go back to it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It may not all come out on the same night. It probably won't, but who knows? Maybe you're a superstar and you might make that happen. But I think it's okay to know that you can take your eyes off and not put so much pressure on yourself to write all of that in one space, in one sitting, and know that that's okay, and know that it might have errors in it, but know that you're going to come back to that and make it the best piece of writing it can be.
I love that.
And then I guess I'll wrap it up. Aggressively chase your story. That's something that helped me a lot, because the more I wrote, the more I was living. And, I was paying attention to how I was living, how I was teaching, how my students were interacting with me, how other teachers were interacting. And it just, the more you write, the more you get involved in what's actually happening in your life. And then the more you're encouraged to do more things with your life and live out more of your passions. So aggressively chase your story. Don't be afraid of that.
I love that. And, sitting here with writers, like, you guys have such a nice way of saying things, it's pretty awesome. I love that. Aggressively. Yes. And for me, like, you don't have to be an education writer. Poems for me was my gateway drug into writing. Thank you. Thank you for that, Dean. I mean, I loved poems, and I just say, get it out there, get used to people reading your writing. I think the hardest hurdle for me was letting other people read what I wrote. That really was hard for me. I might as well have been naked in front of people. That's how it felt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add that Melody is the sweetest person on the planet. Thank you so much for doing this. And she is an author herself. She hasn't talked at all about her book, but she has a great book. I just read, I think it was last week. Were we at TCA last week or week before?
You can read it while you're going to the bathroom. It's awesome. Yes. Yeah. I appreciate that. And honestly, I appreciate all of you. This was like, we put this together in like 24 hours. I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I know you are all so busy, and I know this is going to mean something for people who watch it and who are curious about putting their work out there. So thank you. It means so much to me that you would join me tonight. I love this. And before we say, I don't want anybody to go, I don't want to go off air, but if anybody has any last words that they'd like to share.
Thank you.
Yeah, grateful for all of you.
Yeah, it's great chat.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Don't stick around. I'm going to put my outro on, but y'all know I want to take a picture. So, so here we go. This is always the hard part because I only have one hand and it's never smooth. Yes. All right, everybody. I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have to do this again. Oh, we have a comment coming in. Oh my gosh, Eric. Thank you. Yes, Eric. You'll have to rewatch later. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you again soon.